Mic check. Hello. Okay, I think maybe it's working. Doesn't look like I'm getting very much. Mic check. Oh well. You can see what I'm doing if nothing else. Okay, so JavaFX. Java is a lot like C# in the sense that it's made for writing applications, especially business applications, web applications, and things like that. And so within those applications, you are going to need a lot of components that show up over and over again, like buttons and text boxes and forms and fields, images, maybe even animations and things like that. And so JavaFX has wrapped up a whole lot of Java code to provide a lot of the GUI widgets and things like that that make writing forms and applications really easy. And I say business, but you could use this for just about anything. Anything that needs a graphic user interface. So that's what it is. A lot of the good stuff for graphics already wrapped up, easy to use. And the JavaFX has its own API. So I will show you that. Tell you what, we'll come back to that. But on the Moodle Chapter 4, if you look at the architecture link, it tells you a little bit about it and what it is and how it's made. Everything in JavaFX is just built on Java. It's not another language. It's just taking a bunch of stuff. Like if you wanted to create a button using plain Java, you would write a lot of code to get that to work and to function and to do things. But they took all that code, they wrapped it up, they called it a button, and it's part of the JavaFX library. And so it's all Java code is the point. And the architecture gives you a lot of links if you wanted to look at a specific facet of JavaFX, web, CSS, UI controls, if you want to do like tooltips, scroll bars, and things like that. All of that stuff is in here. And then there's some, I guess more advanced topics in here, like how the threading works. We're not doing threading just yet, but later on this can come back to bite you because JavaFX kind of has its own threading system running behind the scenes, and if you try to implement your own threads on top of that, it can kind of be a pain to work with. But it can be done. It's just not as easy as I think it should be. But they talk about that and some other stuff in here. But for the most part, this is just a great way to implement a GUI with as little work as possible. These are some of the UI stuff. This is not all of them, just some of them. There's drop-down menus, checkboxes, standard buttons, radio buttons. Anybody know what a radio button is? Right, so you'll have a set if you're going to have radio buttons, a group, and then only one of those buttons will be pushed at a time. So you can do that. That's built in. Choice boxes, scroll bars, loading bars or progress bars and other stuff. And there's a lot of other stuff in there as well. I think even Java 10 that's out now has even more stuff, so that's kind of cool. So that's what we're doing. We're working with GUI. Let's open up NetBeans. Once you get NetBeans open, you want to create a new project, and you're going to choose the Javafx category and Javafx application. Okay, and then open that up, and it's going to start you out with a good chunk of code here. A lot of imports from JavaFX libraries, and then you're going to have your class. We'll zoom in a little bit here. And the JavaFX application starts with the start method instead of main. So you can bend the rules a little bit here. Main is still there. It's down here and it just calls launch. But for the most part, at least for now, you don't want to put anything in main. You shouldn't have to. Everything you do will be up in start or in other classes. And it's got a little bit of code here. We start out with a button. It just says button equals new button. There's a set text method here. It says set hello world or say hello world. So that's going to be the text on the button. And then there's a set on action. And this is a little function that is going to handle the action for pushing that button. And it's just going to print out the hello world in the console. Then we've got some more code. We have a stack pane here. There's several different layouts for the GUIs. I'll show you more about that later. And then there is, the stack pane is called the root. If you want to add nodes, basically any widget, text box, label, image, whatever, anything that's going on this GUI is going to be called a node. And the nodes are usually referred to as children. So you say root.getChildren, add button. That puts the button on the canvas. The scene here is the size of your window. It takes your stage or your pane and however big you want it to be. And then you can give it a title and you show it to the user, and that's pretty much it. So just run that and you'll see what I'm talking about. So you'll get the little window here. It's got the Hello World title from set title, and it's got the big button right here in the middle, and you can click that button and you notice down in the console it's spitting out Hello World. So it's doing whatever I have in this action event method. And then when you're done, you can close it out. So I want everybody to take about 5 minutes and see if you can get a second button in that canvas. Just take a look at what you got here and take the steps to put a second button on that canvas. Okay, so that works just fine. But yeah, the button is on top of the other button. And that is because we're using a stack pane. Stack pane, stack stuff on top of each other. Really cool, right? Not really, I'm not sure what that's good for, but if we type in button 2, you're going to get a whole lot of methods when you push the dot. And so you're looking for set methods, right? We want to set location, maybe. It says set layout X. If I click on that, this actually works better if you use the arrow keys. But if you click on it and then like move up and move down, it will pull in some information from the internet on what a certain function does. And this says it will set the value of the property layout x. Defines the x coordinate of the transition that is added to the node's transform for the purpose of layout. So maybe this works. There's actually a few different ways of doing it. But let's just try this. Put in some double value here. Well, that didn't work at all. You guys aren't very good at this. And that may be just due to the nature of the stack pane. Let's try a different one. If when you're looking at this drop-down menu, anything in bold is specific to this object, like it's a method specifically for this object. Anything in regular text is something that is inherited, most of the time inherited from node, but it can be inherited from anything up the tree. We've got to set translate x. That works. The Y will take you up and down.
Is it the same as this here? Top to bottom? Left to right? Or?
I don't know. I think most APIs start in the top left corner and Y goes down, but let's just do that. So translate Y. We'll just set it as 0 and see where it puts it. Well, I didn't do anything. So 0 is in the middle.
Yeah, 10 is really close to the bottom. Right to the bottom.
100 is down. So I'm thinking more Y is going to bring it down. So 0, 0. It appears on the stack pane 0, 0 is in the center, but it's not Cartesian.
Well,
To get top left corner, I'm going to have to go negative in.
Like you do on a graph.
It says the thing is 300 by flip.
Yeah.
But when you put 100 in, or like
So you
100,
could take
150 would
left.
be the bottom. So yeah, it is.
50
starts at
works.
like the middle.
I bet if I go negative 100,
Yeah, do negative and then it'll be above it.
negative, negative, it should be in the top left corner. Yeah, it's actually, the pane is actually a little wider than it is tall. We're 300 by 250. Yeah, so 0, 0 is in the middle, but it's the Y is still flipped, because positive Y on a Cartesian system would take us up.
As far as
It's like an inverted Cartesian. What?
in the code, when you are making the button and placing it and setting the action, do you group all that together, or do you make the new button at the top and then
Like how do you lay it out?
make all the you make all your functions for it? Do you keep them together with the button when you create it, or do you create everything and then make all the?
I try to keep everything, I mean, as long as it's organized in one way or another, it helps. Because it definitely is hard to follow if you scatter it all over the place. But I try to keep everything associated with a specific node in one place. And then I might add them all at the very end.
Okay.
That's usually the way I do it. Okay, so we got a general idea of how this works. I want to pull up the API and show you.
Does it have a visual editor?
Yeah, but we do not use that in this class.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the at override do? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask about those little with the at symbol in front. There's the same continuity.
This is the annotation. It tells you that we are overriding the start method. There's a base start method, and we're going to override that. See, we're extending application. So application has a start method in it, but it's probably abstract, and so we're going to override that with our own version of start. This is how you get around, well, a few things, but
So is that just like saying, hey, you need to override this, or is it saying?
it's more of a note to you.
Oh,
It's a little safety there that lets you know you are overriding a function. Yeah, it will run without it. It doesn't have to be there. NetBeans will give you a little warning or something that'll be like, hey, you're overriding, you want to add that. But that's why you'll see the little thing pop up here. But it's an annotation, it's like a special comment.
for what?
Just to let you know that you are overriding some other function.
Anything else? So like, why wouldn't you just use the function? I mean, just a regular comment. I'm just trying to get the difference. Like, you just comment it, or can you like leave more information? Can you use control click it?
No. I don't know, I need to look up annotations and see if there's anything specific about it.
I think it's nice, it adds a marker in that little navigator window, but I think it does that for any function, even if you don't put that one.
I don't know, I'll look it up, but for the moment, just think of it as a special comment just to let you know that you're overriding some other function. And the technical term is annotation. Another thing we can do, NetBeans, like Java 8 and up supports Lambda functions, and so you'll get this little thing right here on these set on action methods, and it says use Lambda function. You can click on that if you want to, and it will convert it into a Lambda expression, and a Lambda expression is a little bit shorter.
But the problem is, it kills it because you don't have a event handler class or something like that you have to create.
Well, that should work. It should work just fine.
If you look at events, it's complaining about it.
What's complaining about it?
It's complaining about event.
It should be fine. But a Lambda expression is kind of like a small function that you write in place, which is basically what we had anyways, but this is just a cleaner way of doing it.
Is it like an inline? Or maybe that was something else that I was reading yesterday. I was trying.
It's probably like inline. I know the code is a little bit different. Like I know the bytecode is different when you convert it to a Lambda. But I think the neatest thing about it is it's just shorter, a little bit cleaner. And as long as you don't have a lot going on in that method, this is a pretty nifty way of doing it. And the syntax is a little weird because you're set on action method that you would normally think is going to take an argument is actually taking the entire body of a function. And you get the weird pointer arrow. But that's what that is. Usually somebody will ask me about that. It's not. It's just a different way of doing things. Okay, open up the Javafx API, and we're going to look at button, and we're going to look at a few other things. You can right-click on this, and as long as you have an internet connection, you can click on Show Java Doc. And this will pull up the Javafx API.
No. It says no.
It said no?
Yeah, it's not letting us open it.
Why not?
Because I don't think we have IE.
You don't need IE. I don't know why. I guess because IE is the default on this machine. Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You go to the course, the introduction page here, and I have a link in orange to the Java Online Documentation, or you can just search for it. It's going to pull up this page here, and on the right side under Reference, you have Javafx API Documentation. So you can click on that, and it will take you to the same place. And then in the bottom left corner here, we have all of the classes for Javafx, and we were working with the button. So click on button, and that takes you the same place I was. Now, learning to use Java and JavaFX, there's a lot of resources out there, but the API is where it's at. I mean, this is the core of Java. This is the documentation that is written specifically for this. So this is where you find all the details and all the good stuff. Up at the top here, it shows the hierarchy of the button. Button is derived from button base, which is derived from labeled, and so on, all the way up the chain. The first JavaFX class is going to be node. Like I said, everything that goes in JavaFX is, maybe not everything, but most things are nodes. And then node is derived from object. So it shows you the hierarchy there. And that kind of tells you like what functions you can use or what methods are available to you. Anything in these classes should be available to button. There's exceptions, but for the most part, that's how you look at it. It shows you all the inherited properties. And then it'll show you the methods that are available. These are all the methods that are inherited from the different classes. Notice a lot of things come from node. And then you get a few things specific to button. Most of the stuff will pull up in the drop-down menu whenever you push dot. You know, you type btn dot. All these methods will pop up if they're available. Another good thing the API is good for is just you can browse through here and maybe find something you're interested in. There's just a lot of neat stuff. Audio clip, bar chart, a box, checkbox, combo box. You can kind of browse through here, and there's every object that's part of the JavaFX API will be listed here. There's even 3D stuff. You can set up a 3D environment pretty easy. I say easy. It's some work, but it's not too bad. A lot of people have done it. But this should be your go-to documentation, rather than just typing in Google and browsing Stack Overflow, and maybe you find something, maybe you don't. All right, can we change the color of the button? What would I do, knowing what I've told you now? How would I change the color of the button? I'm a Java programmer. I just got my first job. I need to change the color of the button. This is what I know. Any ideas?
Google. Yes,
What? I wonder if there's like a set color. No. Is there a color property? Set background? There's a lot of lag between you and me. Set background. We can click on it and see what it is. Set background. The background of the region, which is made up of 0 or more background fills. When it shows it in capitals like this, this is another object, some other class. Or background images. Okay, so you learned something. Not what we were looking for, but that's good to know. What else?
Set effect, shadow, give it a drop shadow.
Okay, you can give it a shadow, but we need to change the color. How do we do that?
Set style? Well, wait, no, that's for CSS.
There's no set color, but there should be something. You said set style?
Yeah, but that's for buttons like a CSS. What might work? So you set style and then in a string.
Well, I can click on this. Pull up the Java doc. There's a Caspian or a Medina. I don't know, does it work? It's not color, I'm just curious if it does anything.
It would be -fx space, with that is -fx space colon and a hexadecimal value for the color.
What? What are you going with?
If you're using set style, you inside the quotes, you make a quote basically, and inside of it you do hyphen fx hyphen again base base colon, and then a hexadecimal number for color.
That sounds like the worst way ever. How many bits? How many bits?
3.
3?
I mean, 4.
Nothing's 3.
2 bits. 2 bits for each color. Same as CSS.
I don't speak CSS.
So it'd be 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So, FA.
That would be 24 bits, wouldn't it?
After it.
Right there?
So, yeah, right there.
I don't know. I've never done it this way.
If you change base ease to background color, it works.
Background color and the style you're using, set style.
And set style.
We already saw the stack pane just kind of stacks everything up on top of each other, which is not great in most cases. So now you can define your own layout pane, but that's going to be some work. So they provide you with a handful. The one I like probably the best is the border pane. And it's just divided up into regions. You've got the top, left, right, and bottom. And notice that the top and the bottom scale across the entire width of the canvas. And you've got the center, of course. So if you like to work in regions, you may want to go with the border pane instead of a stack pane. And then you can do like set your widgets to the left, your nodes rather, to the left or to the top or whatever. You can also nest these panes inside of each other. So if you wanted another border pane within the left side of this, you could do that. Note these sizes are not fixed. It's just going to be whatever size the node is. So if I have a really big node set to the left and then a small one on the right and nothing in the center, then it's going to look like that. It's not going to look like what they show you here. This is just a general layout. You have an H box and a V box. So if you want to put things lined up next to each other horizontally, you'll use the H box. And if you wanted to do a column of nodes, you could use the V box. And you can nest the H box and the V box inside of each other. So if you wanted to have a few columns of buttons all in a row, you would have 3 or 4 V boxes nested in an H box. And then you could take that H box and nest it somewhere in your border pane. So all this stuff kind of it's really modular. So you put the H box up at the top. Here's a V box. You've got just several labels or links here, but it can be any nodes. It could be a button, it could be images, whatever. So there's your V box. A stack pane, we've already seen that. The grid pane, if you like to work on a grid, you don't necessarily want the regions. You just want to be able to set some X, Y, row and column type stuff. It's not working on the pixels, it's working by just rows and columns, kind of like a spreadsheet. You can use a grid pane. And again, you can nest that inside of just about any of these others. They're all interchangeable. But the grid pane works with rows and columns. Just like an array, you start at 0. And in this link I'm showing you, they're using all of them, and they're kind of like right here they put the grid inside the center of the border pane, V box on the left, H box across the top, probably another H box in the bottom. And then there's a flow pane. Flow pane is kind of cool because if you resize your window like this, the flow pane will reorganize on the fly and just kind of shove the nodes around wherever they fit. And it's really good for messing up your layout, but it's also kind of neat in some cases to see everything kind of dynamically move around to fit whatever your window is. So that's a flow pane. And there's a few others. There's the tile pane if you wanted a fixed size grid. You can do that, and then the anchor pane. I don't remember what the anchor pane does. I think it actually gives you your XY coordinates as pixels. So you have probably the most control and the least help using an anchor pane. But they give you example code in the document. I recommend going with the border just because it's easy to work with, and then just fill these regions with other, usually HBox and VBox will get you by. But if you wanted to throw a border pane in there or something like that, another border pane or a grid pane or something, you can nest all of these guys within each other. I would not use the stack pane because it's just not great. So what we're doing for the lab is just a remake of Lab 3, but we're going to use a GUI. So you're going to be using Javafx, you're going to have pictures of whatever your store sells, you're going to have text box, you're going to have labels, you're going to have math. What? Do you feel like you have enough to work with? Learn to use the API. I'll put some API questions on the test. So say, you know, maybe something like what node is derived from this node, or what methods are available for this object, and you need to be able to look those up in the API. All right, any questions? Okay.